What's up, kids? Welcome to Horror in the Halls. I'm Jenny, aka Mrs. Hill,
And I'm Bob, aka Mr. Holland.
and today is our Jenny Dreffels edition episode where we'll be reviewing The Tales from the Gas Station Volume 1 by Jack Townsend and narrated by Mr. Creepypasta himself.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
before
I'll
we
just
just jump right in to tell us all about this person before we get into the story. Sorry.
So Jack Townsend is, I'm assuming, a pseudonym. I'm just gonna start with that. And I'm gonna explain why in just a second. So this book is actually a set of four. It's a 4-part series. And I didn't know that when I first started reading it. I thought, but I should have, because it said volume 1, duh. But that's my brain. This was a Johnny Hill recommendation, which I appreciated the thought, but I did not really enjoy this book as much as I hoped I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I've looked everywhere for who this author is, and he literally is just, he lives and breathes the Jack Townsend life of the gas station attendant, storyteller, blogger. So if you look at Audible, they give you like an explanation of who the author is, which is funny to me because anywhere you look, even Instagram, it all talks about the same thing. So it says Jack Townsend is a gas station worker, storyteller, blogger, professional fearmonger, former child, amateur person, which I thought was hilarious, co-recipient of Times Magazine's 2006 Person of the Year, and despite what you may have heard, totally not a secret demon in a human suit. But it was also talking about how he rose to kind of fame a little bit over the Tales from the Gas Station because he had received an award for best series of 2017 from No Sleep. His online forum has 14 million subscribers,
That's
which
crazy.
is crazy. His stories have been translated into 6 languages and have appeared in podcasts, books, viral creepypastas, and people's dreams all over the world is what it says.
That's awesome.
But his actual website is called gasstationjack.com, and it's literally the blog that is what the book is based on. Like Jack Townsend working for the gas station, and he's writing a blog, and he's starting to get subscribers and followers, and that's kind of what it looks like. Like when you look it up, it's like all that information, but it also has like information about like where he's going to be. There are also comics based off the life of Jack, the gas station attendant. So this author goes to Comic Cons a lot, as Jack Townsend, and the fans are all like they engage with him as the gas station Jack character, because I've seen like lots of comments where it's like, are you going to have any gnomes for sale? Because that's part of the book where he talks about how he sells all those little bitty gnome figurines. I don't know
Yeah.
why that. I'm like, what is the deal with the gnomes? And it never covered the gnomes. It just said people would bring them back, or I don't
They
know.
just popped
So
up. Yeah. They were kind of
I'm
random.
I'm sure it probably explains it in one of the other volumes that he has, but in this one it did not. So I was like kind of bummed that it didn't go into further detail why some of the gnomes got brought back. Cause I'm like, are they little evil gnomes? Like, what is it? So, but I don't know. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was not a fan. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was interesting. But like I really feel like this was just somebody that like really enjoyed the X-Files when they were younger and tried to recreate it in a gas station.
Yeah.
I will say just to point out, we were also co 2006 Person of the Year for a time, just so everyone is aware.
What are you talking about?
The Time Person of the Year in 2006 was you. It was just anybody who was an influencer on the internet. That's why he made that point. I was like, that's funny. I was looking it up to see. I was like, what? I was like, that's nonsense. But yeah, it's just essentially, yes, you control the information age. Welcome to your world. So like the 2006 Person of the Year was just people.
So that, I think that has a lot to do with the type of humor that Jack actually has throughout the whole book, because he's very like cynical and just sarcastic, and there's a lot of dry humor that comes from Jack, and you don't get a lot of reaction from him, and when you do, it is funny. But yeah, I can't say that I loved this book. I think what I would have preferred is if it had stayed a blog, or if you were going to put it in a novel format, that it would have been more of like a novella or a series of like short blog posts. Like he could have made it to where it was just a book form of his blog posts. And I think that would have been
Yeah,
better
I think so.
received by me anyway, like, or whoever else was just coming in not knowing like the actual blogs from the creepypastas.
Yeah, because
So,
I agree. I think if he'd have done it like Jack was narrating or like long form telling you, like restating the blog post, like a collection with maybe some excerpts of him explaining what was happening in the story, would be better than trying to take those short form posts and turn them into a long book. I was like, I was telling
yeah.
people, or I was telling you earlier, I listened because we originally said to listen to the podcast because we were not aware that they were different. And there's two. You can go to Creepy Podcast or just Mr. Creepypasta himself. I recommend the Mr. Creepypasta one because he's who narrates it, and he is a really good narrator. One. Two, some of the stories in the podcast, which are straight reading the blog posts, they're the bones of them, like the outline is in the book, but he greatly expands on it. So it's different. It almost seems forced, like I need to try to add more to this, when really it was just quick, funny, little small stuff, little stories, like, oh, this happened today. Like, it would be a great TV show, not a great movie kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like, it was great in
Yeah.
a 23-minute format with commercials, but don't give me 2 hours. And that's kind of where I
Yeah,
was with the book.
that's where I was too. I would have rather just stay short form like it was. I think it would have been a lot better. And you would have seen a lot more development for Jack over that, even over the small posts. Like, it's cuz he's clearly the narrator. He's unreliable, but he's the narrator.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um
And he kind of explains why, though. I think with his sleep disorder, I think
yeah, and
he's kind
I
of play
explained
into
that in my
that.
notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I explained that in my notes. He's an unreliable narrator anyway. Like, you can't trust what he's experiencing because there's no telling what's going on with him mentally. So, so the list of characters is like Jack, obviously being character number 1 because he's the narrator. You have Antonio, or he calls him Tony a lot. Mama Susan and Paul, which I actually love Mama Susan. I wish she was in it a little bit more. Vanessa, she's kind of in and out. She's not like a huge character or anything. She just serves that little bit of a purpose here and there. She's not really important to the story. Marlboro Man, or Jerry Pascal, which also could be the cultist. The man in the blue raincoat, he just keeps kind of popping up. He's kind of just the creepy side note. The psychiatrist, Dr. V. There's 2 agents at one point that comes in and questions Jack, and their names are Rick, which I thought
He
was
had the
funny.
exact same name. It was funny.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a common
Kiefer,
name.
yeah. Kiefer is probably the funniest thing ever, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But he's supposed to be this politician guy, and then I put like immortal a question mark because at first I didn't know what was going on with Kiefer. And there's Tom. He's the police officer that deals directly with the gas station, and then Spencer Middleton, which he more so comes in at the end. Like, there's like he's alluded to, like talked about a little bit in the beginning, but he has a bigger role at the end of the story. So, those are the list of characters. I don't think I missed anybody.
No, but a funny thing about Tony, in the blog, he calls him Carlos, but it's funny because he comments on, hey, don't use my real name in your blog. So I think, and now that I just read that, it kind of makes it click in my brain. I think the book is him like writing an autobiography of what has happened to him. And the blog, he talks about it, is something he did before the book. Like, the blog was what was happening, and this is him retelling the story of
Mm.
his life. So the blog was supposed to be, I guess, when you read it, it's just little quick, this happened to me today. Because then I was wondering, like, why is Tony's name different? Because he even calls him, we'll say Carlos or Tony. Because he's like, hey, don't use my real name because he's
Yeah,
a
he does that in the
convict.
book
Yeah.
because he said, well, because because he had killed Kiefer, and he was like, wait. So you worried about everything in the
Yeah.
gas station? And he was like, yeah, he goes, and you use my real name. Like, he was like really like direct about it. He was like, why are you using my real name?
And he was
Like,
like,
you have
no,
to change
no.
that.
Mental note. Go in and change some names. I was like, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like, give him a better name. Like, I thought that
Yeah.
was funny too.
Yeah, because I think that's why when I
Um,
first heard it, I was like, "Why did he change the name?" But that's funny because I was like, that's one of the things I was thinking, like, why did he change Carlos? But really, his name is just Antonio, even though
yeah.
he calls him Tony, Carlos or Tony. I'm like, what? Those don't go together. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's I don't know. So I got distracted trying to read this, so I switched over to the Audible version of the audiobook, which I'm kind of glad I did because I really liked Mr. Creepypasta's narration. He does each character really well. I love I love Mama Susan's voice so much,
Yeah, she's
and
funny.
actually Marlboro Man and Tony are hilarious. Like you can tell it's them, like without even saying anything. Like, cause he can switch voices pretty darn well. So, I do recommend if you do read it that you'd listen to the audiobook because I think that was the best way to go
I mean, he's got an extensive online presence of just reading stuff.
because he's really good at it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, pretty extensive.
I do like the point of view of Jack. I think I like his character. I just wish, like I said, it was in shorter form. Because I do like how cynical and dry humored he is, and how sarcastic he can be in like really unfortunate situations. So, like, there are some parts in this book that I'm like, I don't know how I would have reacted to him, but like the Mama Susan scene with Paul and or her husband Paul and Jack when she's doing the ceremony and she brings in the baby pool and she's trying to get him to get naked. He's like,
Yeah,
no, I'm not doing that. So they like settle for him like just taking his socks and shoes off. Oh, it was so funny.
and then I like how he's like, Why are you naked?"
Yeah, that
It's
in the
okay.
second time they do it
Yeah, yeah.
and
Are
she
you
walks
totally
up
naked? Yes.
and then Paul walks up and he's like, and he's naked too, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." Oh my god, oh goodness, I loved that. I like all the moments where everyone makes him feel uncomfortable. So like, there's the Mama Susan and Paul part, and when he actually finds out that they kind of tricked him into thinking he was just putting some kind of like herb under his tongue, but it was actually LSD.
Yes. And then when the
And
it
I was
tells him,
like, yeah, he was like, "You're on drugs." He's like, "What? No, I'm not." And he's like, "Yes, you are." And then my favorite scene that happened that I actually did laugh out loud was the scene where one of the Keefers, which I'll explain in a second, walks into the store and he's being real weird and he goes and gets Crest toothpaste, but he undresses, so he's naked too. And I'm like, why is everybody getting naked? He rubs Crest toothpaste all over his body, and he talks about how he's like old and wrinkly, and he's like rubbing it all over. And then he goes and fills up like one of those styrofoam like Route 44 or whatever they're called drink like and drink it was like a red drink
it
and
was
he
like a
pours it over the
slushy.
top of his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What is happening?" It was so good. I was like, and his response to it was so funny. But and then he shakes it off. I'm like a dog would shake. I was like, "What? Who is Kiefer? I don't understand Kiefer."
Kiefer's a dick, is who Kiefer is. He did that with the sole purpose whenever, because I was laughing about that because beforehand he's asking him to leave because he's got work to do. And he's like, "You're just doing nothing." And I think he does that so he has to clean it up. Like it was just
Yeah,
on purpose to be an asshole. But he did
yeah,
it in the weirdest way ever because Kiefer is weird.
yeah. And we don't realize how weird he is until like closer to the end. I was like, because oh my gosh, the Kiefer. So Antonio, what makes it funny, that whole situation with Kiefer, is that Antonio is actually killing each version of Kiefer. And so each time Jack kind of falls into that like almost accomplice thing where they like put it they're starting to stack the bodies in the freezer at the gas station. And they're like, but why is it the same person? Why isn't Kiefer already dead? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I kept finally I asked Johnny, I said, "What is the deal with the Kiefer? With Kiefer? Like what is why is his body like multiplying? I don't understand." I was like, so at first I thought maybe he's immortal and he got up and walked out or something without them knowing. And then they kept finding like the extra bodies in the freezer and you're like,
Yeah.
"What?"
You see, I listened to Mr. Creepypasta's narration first, and they answer what Kiefer is
Yeah, it
earlier
does in the
in that
book.
in that
Yeah.
and so I was like, that's so I kind of went into listening to the book already knowing, and I was like, which made it kind of amusing. You're like, oh, this dude's weird. I still never found out. Like, I think of course I did not finish the book because imagine that I hadn't get to I read really slow, guys, sorry. But after listening to it, like knowing who Tony is, knowing a little bit about Kiefer and Spencer and all the weird like shadow organizations and like the strange owners of the gas station who like it's basically rumored that it really is just Jack
Mm,
because you never see them, and he is like the only full-time employee essentially. Like he's there all the time, so it's just his gas
yeah.
station.
So let me see before I don't want to skip around too much. So Kiefer is someone that is growing as a plant.
Yeah.
A hand plant. And I was like, because when Jack mentions it in the book, he's like, I've been tending to these hand plants. I'm like, hand plants? What does that even mean? And I was like, it was like literally hand plants. It
Yeah,
was
they're
like,
growing hands.
but they missed one. They were growing out in like the woods. And so that's where Kiefer came from. And but one of my favorite lines from the story was when Jack is talking to Tony about, killing Kiefer. He goes, the man's stupid. He shouldn't be so stupid to get killed 3 times.
I know.
I was like, what? Like,
Like
whatever.
he walked behind my car, so it
Oh
happened.
no.
I
It
like his
just and then
voice.
yes.
It's
He was like,
nonchalant.
yeah. He was like, he shouldn't be so stupid as to get killed 3 times or something. It was so funny.
I like the one
Oh
where
my
he's telling
gosh.
about how like he slipped and busted his head, and he's like, but somehow he still has on shiny dress shoes, and his throat is slit. But he's like, okay, like, he kind of brushes it off because Jack really doesn't care. I did like that one because he's talking about like on the I think the second body maybe, and Antonio's trying to explain what happened where he
Yeah.
found him in the graveyard, and he's like, yeah, and he was just like sobbing, and then he didn't have any shoes, so I gave him my shoes. I'm a nice guy, but he didn't tie
Yeah.
the laces. And it's this really contrived story, which is funny because that's after the therapist is like, oh, I think the story is contrived. And he's like, yeah, he just ran away, and then he tripped on the laces and he hit his head on a gravestone. He's like, but why was he in my car? Well, I couldn't just leave him there. And you're like, and then he kind of quotes and he said, but I wasn't going to point out the fact that he was wearing shiny dress shoes that were still tied and his throat was slit. I was like, Antonio is just killing these dudes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For real. That was funny. I was like, I just kept thinking hand plants. I like walking around listening to it. I'm like, what is this hand plants? But so anyway, Marlboro is my other favorite character, and that's what he's referred to throughout most of the book. But like you mentioned, his name is Jerry. And he actually prefers Jerry. But you don't find that out until the end.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't hate it when he calls me Marlboro. I'm just my name's Jerry. But they find out that he's like living in the gas station because he got kicked out of his cult.
Because they forgot about him. Like that's my favorite part of it is that it wasn't like he snuck in there. Like they put him in that room and he just never left.
Right?
But Jack just is so oblivious to what's going on that he forgot he was in there.
He's
He's just
like, I was wondering where all those candy wrappers
yeah.
came from.
It's like, he talks about
He's like,
Rocco,
"What?"
Rocco and his brood, all the crazy mutant raccoons eating all the candy. He was like, I know they're in here. And I'm like, really? It's just Jerry the whole time, which I thought was really funny. And he kind of starts working there without being employed. He's just like, I'm just going to stock this because I'm here.
He's like, I took care of the cash register while you were gone, Jack. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I updated your blog.
Yeah.
I embellished a little bit. I hope you like it.
In the book, I didn't get to that part in the book, but does he read the book as Jerry doing the blog? Because he does it in the blog post, and it's really funny. Like the Mr. Creepypasta one, there's an episode that's just Jerry because Jack is gone, and he's like, "Yeah, Jack told me to stay here and do this," and he's like, "I'm just trying to figure it out."
Well, it was not really that. So when Jack got thrown down in the pit by Spencer because he wanted him to meet his boss.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of entity living under the gas station is what it alludes to. And Jack breaks his leg. So they Marlboro saves him, or
Jerry.
or what Jerry I call him Marlboro because that's what he calls him the whole book. But he saves him, but Jack don't remember it because he's like completely out of it from the loss of blood and his broken leg or whatever. So he's in the hospital and he gets a phone call from Marlboro from the gas station because he's working and filling in for him while he's out, even though he doesn't, like you said, he's not employed there.
Yeah,
and he's like, and I updated your blog for you. And he was like, you did what? And he was like, I hope you like it. He's like, I even got you some more subscribers because he goes, I noticed that you weren't linked because he's like really like tech savvy.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm known to like get some followers. And he's like, like laughs because he's he was from a cult, so like he knows how to like get people like to subscribe. Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard at that because I was like,
That
that
part
makes
is
sense.
funny. Like in the
So
when he reads it in the blog post, he reads it as Jerry doing it. So it's kind of funny because he's like, "Yeah, Jack's not here, so I'm just kind of holding down the fort, running the gas station while he's gone." And he talks about how bad his handwriting is. He wanted me to like dictate his blog for him while he's gone, but I can't read what this handwriting says, so I'm just gonna
so
write stuff down.
he does mention that, but he mentions that to him on the phone. He's like he goes, "So you read my journal?" He said, "Yeah, and you talk about that girl, but you don't give her a name." He goes, "That's confusing." He's like, "I can't read your handwriting." And he's like, "I tried my best. I transcribed it the best I could." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So he like hangs up on him and he goes back to like reading it, and it was like how he like Marlboro busts in to save Jack with his samurai and he did like some flips or something. And I was like, "What's happening?" And Jack was like, delete." So he like deleted like what he had written. I was like, "Oh, this is so good." That part, he Marlboro's my favorite character. Like, cause he's the most random, but he's funny. That's
Yeah.
the part that I thought was funny.
This is what
Was it,
is hard because I want to shit on this book, but I really do like the stories and the characters. Like I would listen to this as a podcast, like a
yeah, I
weekly
would too.
short story. I would just giggle on the way to work and kind of laugh because I did. I listened to it. I wish Mr. Creepypasta just read it all, like read the whole blog,
Yeah,
and you could get all of it. And I would just listen to the whole blog because I love it in the small form. I don't want
I
to
do
see the
too.
behind the scenes. It's weird. It
Mm-mm.
reminded me of like, do you remember Erie, Indiana? We were
No,
kids.
I don't.
It was like a kids version of the X Files essentially.
Okay.
And that's what it was. Or like this person really liked, God, what was that show? My kids liked it with the kids and it had like Bill Cipher in it. What was that cartoon?
I can't. I don't know.
Hold on. Now I'm on a rabbit hole. But it was funny. The characters are good. Like honestly, they really are. I think they're funny. Especially like I like the weird agents. They're not in the blog and they were a cool addition because they were just stupid. It's Gravity
Yes,
Falls.
they were
This reminded me
very
of
stupid.
Gravity Falls.
Okay.
Like this gas station would be in Gravity Falls because that place is weird. But yeah, the and he spoons his eyes out. I was like, no one will believe this. And he was like, what if I just left this part out? Why would you do that? It's the best part of the story. You're just like, what? This is stupid.
Yeah, it was really stupid. That part was, and they're like, their names were Rick, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I think they had the exact same name too. And he said it's a common name, and he's like, "Oh, okay." He's just like, "Okay, whatever."
He was like, you. He goes, they're trying to open like doors and portals like all over the place, and they're not doing it right. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
He's like,
Huh?
I have how many? He goes, don't you check your blog and how many? He was like, I have followers. People actually want to read my stuff. Like he's like, I'm really confused.
That part I thought was kind of silly. Only because it was like we're going to call out that these are creepypastas in the book about being creepypastas. I was like, that's kind of stupid.
Well, I think he was like trying to allude to the fact that this is how he started. Like he didn't think anything would come of the stories that he made, and this was his true reaction to it. Like I had no idea. And then he does keep coming back to like how he responds to emails and stuff like that. But one thing that I want to mention before we get too far away from it, but the reason I say or I've said that Jack is a very unreliable narrator is because when you find out through the psychiatrist that he actually has a disorder where he can't sleep and he doesn't sleep. So like part of it's I'm like, is he just kind of lucid or like what's happening? Like is he not like is his brain just filling in blanks? Like what's happening?
Well, it's funny
Like it
because if you read, I do all my research on the internet, so I was reading the wiki of it, and it talks about that he calls it fatal familial insomnia, is what he thinks he has. He thinks he never sleeps, but apparently he actually has. This is a little bit of spoiler territory, guys, but he has a REM sleep behavior disorder. So actually, he sleeps more than most people. So most of his ideas are him dreaming.
okay.
I think he is asleep at the gas station half the time.
I can see that.
Yeah, he hits like the lightest possible stage of REM sleep and acts out his dreams. So like Mama Susan, how they weren't there, but he thought they were there. I think he was just tripping in a kiddie pool and he was dreaming about it. Or
I
how
can
in the
see that.
book Tom gets attacked by the imp. You know what I mean? So like I think
Yeah.
according like we found out later, which is funny because it's just on the wiki because that's how I cheat all the time. Yeah, he has enough awareness to know what's happening in reality, so no one knows he's really asleep. but he actually is asleep like all the time.
Well, yeah, in one part of the book at the end, when he comes back from having his leg broken and he's got that cast and he wakes up and he's got like signatures on it. He's like, "When did I get these?"
I know the one of them's real close to his crotch. He's like, "Why is this one so
Yeah.
close to my
He
crotch?" Yeah,
said, "Well, it's so close to my junk. Like,
yeah.
why are you so why are you so close to all that? Like, who did it?" And it was like cryptic. It wasn't even. It was like just a bunch of letters. Like,
Mm.
what?
And he was like, okay."
Yeah, it was funny.
I like
That
that he
part was
never questions
funny.
anything.
No, and he does for a second, and then he's like, "Oh well, whatever. Like, it's fine."
He's kind of like Zenitsu from Dragon Demon Slayer, where he's only a badass when he's asleep.
I know, right?
Yeah, like he's
That's
asleep
funny.
all the
That's a
time,
good.
but still moves and stuff. It's kind of the same kind of idea. So there you go,
Yeah,
guys. Jack is a secret Demon Slayer badass, or he might be a demon. We don't know.
yeah, in a human suit. We
It's
don't know.
interesting. It is interesting. I definitely say listen to it. Especially the Mr. Creepypasta ones. I liked it. I just wanted to hear Jack's stories. I didn't care so much for the behind the scenes stuff because a lot of it he explains too
No.
much. Like he over explains, I
Yeah,
think.
he does.
And I'm like, why is that pertinent? Just tell me what happened. And they're funny and it's interesting. But yeah, I did not need to know about him having this weird REM sleep thing, him never sleeping, even though that's like I think he would have died a long time ago. Based hell, this time frame of this book, he would have died. But
Yeah,
it would have been cool. Like I said, I like the short form. I may go in and actually, if I could find the blog and read the blog. I'm looking at the fan art. I think most of his fans are like high school age teenagers. This is all looks like kids drew it or younger people drew it. This looks like stuff I see students draw on
yeah.
this. Other than this one creepy thing at the end, this looks dope. But most of it is. It looks like some stuff like a kid in one of our classes would draw.
I don't know. I think he does a really good job with the characters and the short form. So, like you said, if he just stuck to that, that'd be fine. I mean, I feel like his listener base is or his reader base is pretty significant, so that's probably why he was able to get the books published. But I think that they might have been self-published books. I didn't even check that part. I should have. Let me look at it really quick to see. Because if that's the case, that would make a little bit more sense. Because those are a little easier to do.
Well, yeah,
Yes,
you just
he's the
uploaded.
one that published it. He self-published his book.
Okay, then.
Which it's not that's not a bad thing. A lot of people that's the only way they're gonna get their books published anymore. Like you literally have to have a following anymore before you even publish anything with like a big company. Cause I was researching that for even myself and they were saying like you kind of already have to have a fan base set for them to even start looking at you. I don't remember what source I was reading, but it had something to do with like self-publishing versus publishing with a major company.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense.
yeah, it does. So, and especially with stuff like this, like if you already have a listener base, like it's like having I'm just going to use this podcast as a reference because Scared to Death does a book every year and it's of their listener tales that they do and they get like I'm pretty sure they self-publish theirs too, but like it's all the tales from like the people that write in and then
Okay.
they just like edit it and they publish it and then they put them up for sale. So
Hmm.
I actually have like the first copy of one of those. I got it for Christmas. So those are always fun to do, but like I feel like a lot of times that's what they have to do cuz you know, those major companies don't just take anybody. Like it's really hard to get anything published. It's very competitive. It's a saturated market. So it's like podcasting. There's so many, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Whatever.
I mean, it's true. Whatever.
It's true.
Um,
It's true.
but honestly, I would probably just read the short form of this. Like that would be my recommendation, or to listen to Mr. Creepypasta narrate
I just wish
the
he read
blog
it
post.
all. Like I don't think
Yeah.
it just says you can only find volume one, which I would like to find more. Like I think maybe I mean, let's see. He's got like 8 parts of the blog. I really think the blog only goes to like part 8 and that's the last thing being read. I think based on this, it looks like
Hmm.
maybe. And you can find Mr. Creepypasta narrates all of those. There's like 4 other podcasts that also do narration on it, and I think that may be all he did, and then went into the books because I don't see. I was trying to
Gotcha.
find more to see if I could listen to more or something like that. But yeah, it looks like it just goes back into the gas station. And he wrote it in 2020. It looks like there's 8 parts. It's just a big creepypasta. It's almost actually this one says it started in 2018. He finished it. It's funny. He finished it on March 23rd, which is like a couple days ago in 2020 is when part 8 comes out. So yeah, it's a blog post in 8 parts. It breaks down the whole story really of the book. It gets all the way into the dark god and everything. So you
Mhm.
could probably know the whole tale from his blog post if you just jump on there and found it. So that's gasstationjack.com. It's worth checking out. Like I said, it's great in short form. It's interesting. It's not like, oh my gosh, the greatest writing I've ever read in my life, but the characters are fun and it's a good story.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have much else to say other
I
than
don't either.
to just go over the rubric,
Let's do it.
which is gonna be harsh, but,
I
so
mean, maybe.
character development. So the top being clearly describes characters in detail, clearly develops characters over the course of the text. Characters are well balanced and show growth over or lack thereof to suit the needs of the piece. I thought that the characters were well developed, especially like the ones that he interacts with the most. And it does show Jack's growth with like actually talking to people and making friends because he does make friends.
Yeah.
He's got Marbro, which is Jerry, and then he's got Tony or Antonio.
Yeah. Apparently, it's later on in the story. Tony's a backstabbing piece of shit, according to
Yeah,
the wiki.
right. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to give away all of it because I mean,
You should read it.
there's a lot more to the book than what we gave you, but like we gave you the funny parts. So,
Yeah, we're trying to do
um
less spoilery stuff on the books, so you guys will actually, read them and not know the whole thing like we do the movies.
yeah. Well, usually it's easier to watch a movie than to sit and read a book or
It's
to
true.
listen to a book.
It's true.
So, I mean, that's where we're at. I think they were. I think the characters that were supposed to be well developed were. So, I would be more willing to. I'm not necessarily a 25 to a 20, but I would be
Ooh,
more of the 19 to 15 range
I was thinking like
with the
15
character.
is generous.
I don't think so. I don't know if that would be because he does well develop Tony and Marbro.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but you got like, excuse me, so many other auxiliary characters that he just kind of touches on. I don't know. There's a lot of characters. I mean, we go like what, like a 17? I'm not going to argue a couple points. You said 15 to
That's fine.
19. Yours has a range, so let's slap it in the middle. 17.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Plot development. So themes are well developed, and clear to the reader. Pacing of the story is timed well and doesn't feel rushed. I don't love this one.
No, he jumps around too much.
Yeah, it's very it's hard to follow at times, and then I get confused when I think it's between when he's asleep and when he's awake. I think he tried to make that a successful writing device, but it did not go over very well. So I would be at the bottom of that one, like 9 to 0.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think the themes are as well developed as they could have been, and the pacing is just all over the place. Like it goes slow and really slow in some parts and really fast in others.
Yeah.
I just maybe like a 9 for
And it
me,
worked
to be
better
honest
in
with you.
short form, I
Yes,
think.
it would have. That's the whole point is like it's like the character for development was there for me, but the plot development was not,
Yeah.
which
I
is
mean,
weird.
it has a plot. It's just the way he gets about it is, like I said, you can listen to, or you can read or listen to the 8-part blog post and get the entire plot in 8 parts that are barely 2 pages long each and get the whole story. So he really just added too much to make it a book. I have no idea how you made it 4 books unless everything else is just additional stories that's not based on the blog.
Well, there's parts of the first book that he did not finish up. So like you don't know who the guy in the raincoat is. You don't know there's another person. There's like a cowboy character or
Yeah, the
something.
bathroom
He,
cowboy guy, it's a ghost, I think.
he's not there's nothing on that and there's nothing about the gnomes. And the gnomes are important. They have to be. Like he keeps referring to them. Like there's something more to that.
Either that or
So
it's a MacGuffin. I'm good with
I
9.
don't
I
know.
mean, I think nine's nice. It's generous. We can get
The
there.
only thing the only thing that would have made it a 14 out of 10 is because it says themes are well developed and clear to the reader sometimes. It's not.
No, you have no idea what's going on sometimes. And he does jump
Yeah.
around in stories.
Yeah.
Like whenever the whole time when one of the Antonio killing Kiefer times, he jumps back to another part in the same like paragraph almost, and you're just like, what? I'm very confused. And then he kind of wraps it up at the end. It's just weird. All right, so imagery.
Let's see. Author creates well thought out and descriptive scene setting and actions. I'm kind of a middle of the road here. Some of the imagery at times was really well developed, and I think that's because the blog posts were well developed.
Yeah, but some of the stuff with Mama Susan's not in the blog, and that was pretty well done.
Well, that's what I'm
Like
saying. It's
describing
not
those
all of
rooms
it.
and stuff. I'd go with a 14. I can see like if you're in the middle. I don't know if I'd want to go higher than a 15 though, because some of it is just like
No.
what?
Are you writing these scores down? Because I
Yeah, I
sure
got
as
it.
was not. Okay, cool. And then style and conventions. So the problem with this is I actually listened to it, but like going through it, and I will say, being someone that has read multiple books that were self-published, there's going to be errors because they're not using a fine tooth comb to fix everything. Because when you are with like a big publishing company, you got
Yeah.
several editors looking at your book. So and I did start reading it. So like I would put this in more of a probably 14 range. Yeah, there's some conventional errors present. There's no doubt. So
So from your English teacher brain, what are you giving it?
a 14.
Of actual 14? So two
Mhm.
14s in the last two
Yeah.
sections?
Yeah.
All right. What's that, like a 55? There you go.
A
55.
55, okay,
Yep.
okay.
Pretty sure
Yeah,
my
that's
math's
kinda what
right.
that's kinda where I was thinking it was gonna hit, but again, like, I mean, I don't wanna run it through the mud because I think the blog posts and the narrated, blog posts are probably where his strength is. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It was a good narration. I think the characters are interesting. Like I said, it's like a kid watched the X Files and wrote a story about it, right? And
yeah,
as a creepypasta, it's a good continuation. I would listen to this every week if he was telling a new story every week or bi-monthly. But I think as a book, it's too much fluff to make it the length it needs to be. And I don't really necessarily care about the things that lead up to the blog post as much as I do about what's happening that he's writing about, right? So his
yeah,
blog post about like it's funny because he does kind of hint on the Mama Susan thing. The reason why it's not in the blog is because those agents. So he says he skips part 3 in the blog and says, "Hey, sorry if you listen to that, the whole Halloween incident. We had to delete all this." So that he elaborates on, and that part was cool. I did like that, but that could have been like a behind the scenes kind of vibe. You know what I mean? So it was
mhm,
cool to see what happened because when you read the blog post, he talks about it being deleted. He's like, "Oh no, we had to delete this." Apparently it was causing some problems. He goes into why it was deleted, which I thought was kind of cool. Which I thought that to me was interesting. And then he moves on from it. But he's like, "Yeah, it had to be deleted. The agents came in, and it was just really funny." But yeah, I like that.
see, and that's kinda where I'm at, like, I really wish, like, he created a book of his blog posts. I think that would have been better because that would have been funny. To me, that would like, it's in physical form where you could buy it, and it would just be his blogs.
Yeah.
And he could structure it exactly the way he would a blog, and it would have been great. So, but I do know that when he does go to Comic Con, he takes his all his books with him and his comics too. And I'm almost interested to see what those comics look like and like maybe read one of them. I think that would be fun to
I
see it
wonder
like all.
if he draws them too.
I don't know because you don't that one might actually have like something on it. That if you look on his website, it takes you to the comics.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm looking at it. It just says Gas Station Jack, Code Green, Part 1 of 7, Jack Townsend. But it doesn't say anything else about who wrote it or what.
Because he is strictly going by Jack Townsend as
Yeah.
the gas station attendant.
I know, but like it's a comic, so unless he's the one that drew
He
it,
might have been the one that drew it. It would
normally
have
you'd
to
have the
tell you
artist
on
on
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The
So
cover
if
on this website that leads you to just shows him. And there's only one. I guess he hasn't done the rest of them. It's part 1 of 7. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So there you go, guys. Tales from the Gas Station, Volume 1. We got to stop picking Volume 1s of stuff. I feel bad not reading the rest of them, but
okay,
oh
well,
well.
I the next month is not a volume 1, it's a standalone,
Thank
so but
goodness. I'm like,
I
that's
won't give it away yet.
that's 2 months in a row. We've been like, and there's more to this story. But still, guys, it's interesting. The blogs are great. Definitely check them out. We gave it a 55, but again, we're basing it on teacher rubrics. You may love the story. This is not to say we didn't like it. It's just the grade. You know what I mean? Students write stuff I like all the time, but if it's technically bad, you got to get the grade you deserve. You know what I mean? I can't, unless it's creative
Right.
writing, I can't give you fancy points for being funny. So there you go. 55. Big old fail, but still worth checking out, especially in the short form on gasstationjack.com. Also, Mr. Creepypasta is a stellar narrator. I will give him that. I will tag him in this because he did a really good job. I was impressed with the voices and knowing when atmospheric change is happening in the story. Like, he was really good at like relaying that just with his voice, which I think is kind of impressive. So
Yeah,
bravo to
100%.
him. Bravo to him. All right,
All
guys.
right.
There you go. There's our Jenny Dreadful episode for March, right? Yeah, March. God, I've been
Yes, it's still March.
lost, man. Last couple of weeks has been,
Drudgery of a month. This is
been
the worst teacher month
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
We're
The
all
March were
tired.
real. They were real this year.
Yes.
So yeah, guys. With that, so we'll move into a new theme next month. I'll announce that soon. For those of you listening, just a quick announcement, couple announcements, but the first one is we as teachers are off spring break. We will be skipping the first Sunday in April, which is the second,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Yes, as I will be out of the country. Jenny's taking a break, and there's also 5 Sundays in April, so we will be back that following Sunday to give you a great entry into our next month's kind of theme, I guess, lesson plan. I'll post all that later on this month. I'll probably make some social media posts about the spring break and also what the theme is and all that before I leave the country. So because my phone won't work once I get out of international waters. I'm not trying to spend $5 million for roaming. So,
No.
but we'll sort it and I'll get a post done on the 9th when I return. So keep listening, guys. There'll be a skit, but really it's just because we're on spring break and we're teachers and we need a break because March sucks.
Right.
This has
It's the
been one of
worst
the
month ever.
worst Marches in the history of my life for me. So it's been a rough one, guys. So bear with us. Don't get upset. We're taking a break. You guys will be fine. I promise. We'll be back. And also, we have merch.
Yes, we do.
If you ever wanted to support teachers and also rock a really cool t-shirt / and or hoodie or have a coffee mug, you can now purchase those. There's a link in the show notes. There'll be a link in our bio on Instagram and other places. So if you would like to do that, that would be awesome. We would appreciate it. And then
And we
tell me about the
also
other.
have a Patreon.
Yeah, we have a Patreon too. You can also support us that way. We do have a Patreon subscriber as part
Yes, we
of the
do.
deal. You get a shout out every week. And of course, it is my little brother because he loves me. But
Yay.
he was our first Patreon subscriber. So thank you. Billy Holland is awesome. We appreciate it.
Yes,
Anyone
we do.
else that wants to jump on that bandwagon and just follow him right on to helping us pay for audibles and buy the books we review and rent movies to watch and all that jazz, we will always appreciate it, guys. You'll get a shout out every week. We love all of our supporters. We're so happy that you guys listen and like the show and comment. And Crystal tries to guess all the episodes every week, and sometimes she's good. And now my goal in life is just to stump her every time.
You are welcome.
I'm like, yeah, guys. Other than that, you tell them where they can find us, Jenny.
All right, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Horror in the Halls. You can also follow Jenny_Dreadfuls on Instagram. You can email us at horrorinthehalls@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. Tell us what you think. Tell me you hate stuff, and we'll argue about it. It's fun. It's my favorite thing to do.
It is his favorite thing to do.
I like to argue. It's good times. Yeah, guys. So, yeah, looks like that'll be the bell. We're going to get out of here. See you next week.
Bye.